Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Jiu-Jitsu Times podcast. I am your host, Kevin Bradley, joined as always by my co-host, Mr. Kevin Gallagher. And we are truly both excited today. I got all gussied up. You know, Kev wore his extra good, no judges needed sweatshirt today.
Sweatshirt.
And we got a guest that's truly been in the game a long time. He's done some incredible things, and we can't wait to tell you all about him and have him introduce himself. But before we do, this is not an episode of the JJT Podcast without a brief shout out to sponsors of the show, your friends and ours, No Judges Needed, your one-stop shop for all of your grappling apparel needs. I'm talking rash guards, fight shorts, gis, modeled by a very familiar face if the graphic comes up right on the screen. Obviously, it's only important if you can tell people outside of the gym that you train. So we got you hooked up with some nice casual wear, t-shirts for when it gets warm out, and some hoodies, still a little cold out. All this ain't going to come cheap, but we're here to help you out there too. Use the promo code JJT at checkout to knock off 20% off all purchases. It's a great deal, and this is a company that's really doing a lot to give back to the community. So once again, that is www.nojudgesneeded.com, promo code JJT for 20% off.
Jiu-Jitsu owned and operated company.
Jiu-Jitsu owned and operated company. They will beat your ass if you don't buy from them. Now, if you're wondering why I'm wearing my one set of nice clothes today, it's because this guest has truly been a hero to many of us, me specifically, since I was a kid. We welcome to the show one of the most passionate and longest working advocates of BJJ in popular culture. Co-starring in the 1999 cult classic Boondock Saints and its sequel, this black belt is now looking to further promote martial arts with his upcoming MMA-centered film, Born a Champion. Please join us in welcoming actor, author, and martial artist extraordinaire, Mr. Sean Patrick Flanery. Sean, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. How are you doing?
Brother, after that introduction, I feel like I need to... Awesome!
He's good at that, man.
Intro,
man, he butters everybody up, man.
I'm like a four-stripe. I'm a four-stripe black belt in intros. You know, my jiu-jitsu sucks. But man, leading people in, that's what I'm good at. So, like, how are you doing? How did Sean Patrick Flanery, how did SPF wake up today? You know, how's he feeling?
Well, let me tell you where I am right now. First of all, I am sequestered. I'm on a 14-day quarantine because I had to leave, and I'm in a different country. So I haven't left this fucking apartment for 4 days now. But I woke up good, man. I could give you a tour around here. I brought like a pull-up bar, an ab wheel. I got a jump rope. I got a little mat. I got. I put two chairs together so I can do my dips. I can do a little workout in here.
I was thinking, like, if you could do the rest of this interview just with a plank, like planking, that'd be really great. You know,
100%.
Where are you at? What country are you in?
I'm in Toronto.
Oh, yeah. It's Canada.
It's in Canada.
Yeah, they're not messing around.
Yeah. So I'm in a 14-day quarantine. Can't leave. It's like I got to be hermetically sealed to take the garbage out.
We have a couple fighters
so clearly
that are in Dubai right now. One of my head coach, Matt Arroyo, and Matt Fervola, one of our guys, UFC fighter. They're in Dubai right now for they went to Fight Island. They're going to fight on the undercard of the Conor McGregor Poirier fight. So they're doing.
Oh, that's cool, man.
That's the question. It's awesome because they were super excited about going to Dubai, and then they realized, oh, wait a minute, we have to be sequestered for 2 weeks while we're there. So,
yeah, are they by themselves or are they together?
No, so there's four of them that went out there: Billy Quarantello, Matt Fervola, Matt Arroyo, and then the other striking coach Dan Rawlings. So I think they gave them 4 rooms as far as I'm concerned, but I think they're allowing them like. It's not quite that bad. They have the fighters out there in a particular space, so they give them their own little area to kind of coexist in. But they are definitely not allowed to go out into the general public. Like they get.
But at least you can put mats down and you can train.
Yeah, they have a little space that they get to work out and cut weight because they send them out 2 weeks early. It's kind of weird. I always think that's weird the way they do it because they send them out when they go to Dubai. They send them out 2 weeks early to get them acclimated to the time change. But then they make them fight at 4:00 in the morning because they want to have it at prime time. It doesn't make any sense. And then the whole time they're out there, they're not allowed to do anything cool because you're in Dubai. You're like, well, sweet, at least I'm in Dubai. I'll go enjoy Dubai. But you can't even leave the freaking hotel while you're there.
They've built this absolutely insane setup over there to capitalize on all of the fights that are happening, and the fighters can't enjoy any of it. And it's gotta suck.
Yeah. Dude, I get it. I've been passing my couch's guard for 3 days now.
That's awesome.
I think it would be appropriate to bring up Jordan Peitzman, Jordan Jitsu of Subspectrum. He made waves when he was doing a lot of techniques on like one of his kitchen chairs. Like he threw a gi on the back of his kitchen chair and he just started doing arm drags.
Didn't he like stripe up the chair or something like that? Did he put a belt on the chair and put a couple of stripes on it or something? I thought that was
promoted the chair.
Yeah. I'll heel hook the fuck out of a dinner table.
No shit, man. No shit. Good way to get your X card.
I know we all want to hear more about, you know, the project that you got coming up, but with Poirier and McGregor too being such a big thing, I kind of got to ask, do you have any thoughts on how that match is going to go down? Or
I think Conor wins. You know, look, I'm not a big proponent of when somebody says absolutely this is going to happen because it's a fight. Anything can happen. But I think 9 out of 10 times Conor wins that. It's not to say that it's not going to be Dustin's day, but I think they're, in my estimation, I've certainly never rolled with either one, but I would guess that they're probably fairly equivalent on the ground, but I don't think they're close in striking. I think Conor's got a guided missile for a left, and I think in the striking department he's got a significant advantage. That's my take on it. I know a lot of people are saying, well, you know, Dustin's a black belt and Conor's only, I think he's a brown belt by now. But I'd venture to say they're pretty close on the ground. I think Conor wins that. In
an MMA context. It's a different world.
Yeah, exactly. In MMA, I think they're probably pretty equivalent. And if I'm being honest, in an MMA context, I would probably even, if there one had to have the edge, I'd probably give it to Conor.
Yeah, I believe so too. I everything you said is exactly my views on, and you look at it like he beat him once very easily. What's to say he's not going to do it again? You could talk about time off. You could talk about all these things. Conor's special. He's proven it time and time again that those outside factors just do not bother him. He's going to come in. He's going to start Poirier. They're probably going to have him fight the winner of the Khabib Oliveira fight. If he wins that, I guarantee you that they will figure out a way to get Khabib. They already have Dana White talking to Khabib right now. They will figure out. There's already rumors
every day. Every day, Dana gets on Instagram and he's like, "I'm going to try this hypnosis technique to get Khabib to fight."
There's already rumors floating around that he's going to take Khabib's going to take over for Poirier on Fight Island in 2 weeks. I don't think that's the case, but 100% they will throw all the money and all the whiskey at Ireland at Khabib to get him to fight, and he'll probably end up taking it. I don't care how bet your result is.
I think you're probably right.
Yeah. And obviously, obviously, if there is a McGregor Nurmagomedov rematch, you know, who's to say the winner of that doesn't get a crack at Sean Patrick Flanery? You know, like maybe.
Hey, brother, you know what's really, really stupid? I'd fucking do it. I mean, who wouldn't? You know what I mean? I'd get my ass kicked, but I'd fucking do it.
I would let Conor McGregor hit me with a stick for 5 rounds for freaking $20 million.
Fuck yes, of course I would. I mean, I'd get fucked up, but I'd do it.
You spend $5 million on reconstruction, that gives you $15 million to live a happy life.
Therapy's only going to be like $100,000 over the course of your life. You know, like the.
Maybe I got a limp. Who cares?
I can afford a gold cane now. Now, Sean, you mentioned earlier that, you know, you hadn't rolled with, you know, either gentleman in this bout, but, you know, you've been a well-known black belt in the public eye for a long time now. Have you had any, you know, experience rolling with like current or past roster UFC guys or Bellator guys? Like, have you found your way into mixing it up with them on the practice mats?
Yeah, I mean, it's impossible not to. I mean, Jesus, back in as early as, man, back in the early 2000s, down at like R1, I trained with Frank Trigg. You know, that's way back in the day. Rodrigo Gracie, just about every one of the Gracies. I mean, Uriah Faber would come into my academy. Disgusting chin strap guillotine, by the way. Yeah, I mean, of course, it's impossible to go through this for 20-something years and not. You know what I mean? And like I say, I roll with absolutely anybody. And I don't say that to be a badass and act like I beat anybody. It's just that I don't think I've ever turned down a role in my life. It's just what you do. You clap hands and you go, and that's part of it. That's the beautiful thing about this martial art. It's and there's such a trusting nature. You know what I mean? It's crazy to think that somebody like somebody like Uriah would roll with just anybody too, knowing, man, he's a professional. What if he gets injured? Not that somebody would hurt him, but what if you roll with the dude and he's a spaz and he just accidentally elbows Uriah and opens you up? Man, these guys, it's such a tight, small community. There's such a trust between practitioners. Anybody knows that if you've been on the mat that long, there's just a bond that's unbreakable. So yeah, man, I've crossed paths with a ton of people, man. It's Max Holloway, Jeff Curran. I mean, the list goes on. I've never come across a bad guy on the mat either. You know what I mean? You clap hands, and having said that, I'm talking about MMA fighters. I've never met somebody that
make it to that level. You got to have a
they make it to that level. They've all been wonderful people. They've all trained really well. I've never had anybody spaz on me and try and be like, yeah, I'm going to fuck this Boondock Saint up. You know what I mean? It's like, but conversely, it's not like I've been like, I'm going to be the actor to finish Uriah. You know what I mean? Both parties are going really fucking hard, but respectful as fuck. And you know what I mean? I've never come across a bad pro. I really haven't, man.
Do you think that you've had roles with people that maybe aren't aware of how long you've been in the game, that they might have been surprised, like, oh crap, this Boondock Saints guy is blowing through my guard?
Yeah, I mean, but the beautiful thing about it, I would rather people find out after the fact. You know what I mean? Because there's two types of people. There's the type of person that's going to be like, oh, you probably got to go easy because he probably got his black belt from doing all privates. And then you have the motherfucker that's like, fuck that guy. I'm going to trash that motherfucker. How dare he? What, you think you fucking got a black, fuck you. That kind of person. But so I'd rather them go. And then 2 months later, they're like, dude, that one guy, that black belt, he doesn't he remind you of such and such? And then you realize it's him. Then they're like, but then it's too late. You've already, had your head in each other's crotch getting triangle. So nothing else matters. You know what I mean? It's, I'd rather it happen like that.
Hang on, real quick. The moment you started talking about getting your promoted through only private lessons, it's crazy. Ashton Kutcher jumped in my DMs, and he wants to.
He slid on in there, didn't he?
We might need to cut that out, but it wouldn't be an episode.
Tell me a little bit about you. Let's talk for a second about you, about your background. I'm just curious about this because I don't really know as much of the background information as maybe I should have, because I never do research because I'm horrible. But so
that's what this is for, man.
That's what this is for. Tell us about how you, first of all, how you got started, where you started finding out about jiu-jitsu, when you started, and the whole Sean Patrick Flanery jiu-jitsu journey.
I mean, I don't really have a unique story. I'm sure this is going to sound incredibly familiar to everybody, but I started martial arts when I was 9. Went through a couple of McDojos. I trained in every martial art coming up through the ranks, from Taekwondo, Goju-Ryu, Shotokan. I was, and I obviously saw a UFC 1. Was it November 23rd of '93? Blew my mind. And, I think every martial artist out there went, is this real? I mean, because to us, it looked like, I don't know, this dude Nagi it looked like he almost fell on the other guy, and they both hit the mat, and then he kind of like wrapped his head around his neck, and the guy wanted to quit. What the fuck was that? It looked like made up horse shit. But, you're curious. But it was before the internet. And so as much as I wanted to train this jiu-jitsu, that was before it was even called Brazilian jiu-jitsu, there was no place to train it. And then one day, Rickson Gracie had an academy on Pico Boulevard in LA, and he closed it down, and he rented space at a place called Jerry Banks in the Pacific Palisades as he was building out his Barrington Academy. And this was probably 99. Yeah, probably 99. And this guy comes in, and he starts putting mats down on the hardwood floor. And I looked at the patch on the gi, and it said Rickson, and then space, and then Gracie. I didn't know who the fuck this Rickson dude was, but I knew the Gracie name. And I said, brother, are you guys affiliated with Royce Gracie? And he goes, yeah, he's my brother. I was like, What? You're brothers to the great Hoist?
Right.
What?
Yeah.
You know, I had no idea. Basically, I was asking Michael Jordan, do you know the great Greg Jordan?
Yeah, right.
You know, and he goes, yeah, you know, he's my brother. I said, man, I've always wanted to train this since I saw it back in '93. And he went to the back, came out, and he threw me a gi. He goes, put the gi, man. Tonight you're gonna train. I said, I've never done jiu-jitsu. Is that okay? I mean, I'm brand new. He's like, yeah, it's no problem, man. My friend, come on. So we did like a couple of movements, a little warm up. Oddly enough, in my first class, like Henry Akins was a purple belt. You guys familiar with Henry Akins?
The name sounds familiar.
Yeah.
He was about a purple belt, and his little brother was a blue belt, Matt Akins. And Lemon, Luis Heredia was an assistant teacher. Rickson was on the mat. And he goes, okay, now we're going to do some spa. Pick some same size, same shape. So I picked Matt Akins, 135 pounds, soaking wet. I've always been right around 170 my whole adult life. And I picked him not to be a bully, but I was doing triathlons at the time. I've competed in all the sports coming up through the ranks. And I thought, I knew the belt system went white, blue, purple, brown, black. And this motherfucker was the first colored belt you get. But I've heard so many magical stories about this martial art. I thought, if this tiny little motherfucker can stalemate with me, it'll blow my mind and I'll believe in this martial art. Well, everybody knows how that shit ended. We clapped hands and choking me, shoulder locking, wrist locking, knee bar and banana split, taking my back. And the clouds opened up and the truth was exposed. And there's two types of people in the world. This type of person that's going to say, well, yeah, you know what, on the street, I would have groin shot, elbowed, I would have eye gouged. And then there's a type of person that says, no, if that motherfucker caught me in an alley and wanted every possession I owned, he'd have fucking left with it. What do I need to exchange with you to get that power over another mortal? And that night, I signed up for 2 classes a week, and that lasted 2 fucking days. And I turned it into unlimited. And I pretty much camped out at Rickson's Academy for the next handful of years until he left and went back to Brazil. And that was it. That's how I got into it. I mean, I got into it the same way everybody does. They get their fucking ass kicked by a skinny person that's one of the beginning belts. And I'll tell you, coming up through the ranks in Taekwondo, if you put a yellow belt against a University of Texas strong safety that's never done wrestling, never done jiu-jitsu, never thrown a punch in his life, you're going to get your fucking ass kicked. A yellow belt in Taekwondo, that's the first belt you get. You put him against a same-size blue belt in jiu-jitsu, he's going to get his arm broken. And that blew my mind.
It's true. I say a lot. I have
Sorry,
a lot
man,
of.
to sleep
But
there on
you,
my
no,
computer.
you're good, baby. You talk
Anyway,
it's your hour, man.
that's how I got into it, man. Trial by fire. And
Yeah.
I was in the latter category. I didn't want to run from it. I didn't want to say, well, I've spent all these years learning something else. I got to find a way to make what I know work. I was like, abandon fucking shit. Change course. And I started as a white belt, man. I did every tournament, every corner. I did Kleber's, Copa Pacifica, from I did the Pan Ams, I did the U.S. Nationals, the American Nationals. I was addicted. I was completely inundated and addicted.
What year was that about that time?
Shit, man. Probably the first Copa, 2000.
Wow, man, you go way back. Wow. So you started training with Rickson probably 98, 99, somewhere around there?
I want to say it was 99. You'd have to do a Google search of when he opened that Barrington.
Yeah. No, for sure.
It's right when he closed the Pico Academy. Right. So I never trained at Pico, but I trained at that Palaces. It might be late 98, probably 99, though. And oddly enough, because I didn't plan it and plan on starting, I never wrote that date down. Like it happened. I was like, fuck that gi. Yeah. Shit. And the next thing I know, I've been training 6 months, and I was like, what the? I remember when 9/11 happened, and obviously that was horrible, and everything shut down. And right around that same time is when the dates are so confusing, but something I always associate that with when we shut down for a couple of weeks because he left the Pico and he was finishing the Barrington Academy. And I was probably, right at blue belt right about then. But ever since then, like I can tell you the date I got my blue and my purple and my brown and my black and all that. But I wish I'd kept a logbook from the day that I walked into that academy in the Palisades, man, because it is. It's one of those dates that changes your life, man.
So obviously you've trained for a while. You've had different instructors. You've moved from place to places. I've been Rickson's not around here. Go back to Brazil. Tell us a little bit about what it was like just to be around Rickson in those days, because people talk about him as this like sage warrior, this samurai, master that just has this ability with his own concentration.
We had Kevin Casey on, and he talked about how he trained the birds in his backyard to like land on his hand and do all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, the Zen master. Tell us a little bit about what it was like just being. Obviously, in those days, you had no understanding of the greater scenes, but now as you progress through the ranks and you become a black belt in recollection, tell us a little bit about what some of the things that you felt like made him so great.
Well, that's a long conversation, but I'll tell you a brief little synopsis. All that shit you hear about Rickson, it's true, and I'm not a fanboy. He's my instructor, so he's infallible like that at all. I come from a very objective place. I saw Flavio Leopoldo win the Worlds and come to the academy. And I was sitting on the wall with Henry. We're all wringing wet. And Fabio has his head in his hands, and he can't process why this guy just destroyed him. And he just won the Worlds, won the gold medal at the Worlds, and he just got annihilated. And we all watched it happen. And I'm sure he can tell you the same thing. It's like this guy was on a different level. And even to this day, he has a very, very unique and I think incredibly rare style. Like there are some fundamental movements that are simply lost. A lot of the what they call OG positions, some of the things you learn on day one, like the scissor sweep. I agree. If you don't learn it correctly, then you're going to discard it. You're going to think it's garbage. The up and over, the hip bump sweep. If you don't learn it correctly and it doesn't work, you're going to discard it. For example, like a big one is the way that he sits inside the closed guard is different than any other academy I've been to. I mean, that guy just has something. He doesn't have a great command of the English language, even after having been here this long. And I think one of the things with training with him back then is, I remember getting coached, for example, at tournaments, and he would say, "Sure, make for passing. Like, make for passing. It's like, could you give me some specifics? I'm a white belt. I'm trying to pass. Right. I don't know what. Make for frame, escaping. Make for frame, escape. Make for framing and escaping. Right. Where should I put the frame? But because it was like that, it forced you to stand back and really analyze what you're seeing and try and extrapolate what he can't articulate. And one thing I think, if you have an instructor that has a wonderful command of the English language, you never question whether he's leaving anything out. You don't teach yourself how to self-teach, for example. With Rickson, I knew there was some things that he couldn't articulate, so it forces you to really dive into the minutia and pull things out. Like, for example, the way that he sits in the closed guard, going back to that, he would do it, but he never really could tell you. It simply looked like he's sitting there making the same grips until you look and you feel and you go, okay, this is what he's doing. And it's very, very, very different. I mean, the guy is special, and he has a probably a more different style than just about any academy I've been to.
Did it take you? Obviously you're a black belt now. I mean, you've been training for quite some time. Did it take you an evolution of your own game to get to the point where you realized how much different and how much special Rickson was?
Yeah, like I said, when I first started training there, I didn't even know who he was. I
Right.
thought I thought he was partnered with some guy named Gracie. I thought there was a guy named Rickson. Then I realized, oh, his name is Hickson. You just mispronounced you H the R. I'm like, okay, Hickson, but he still partners with one of the Gracies. When's a Gracie guy come in? Then I realized he is a Gracie. Then I realized it's his brother. Then I realized he's the fucking champion of the family.
Yeah, right.
And
He's like the best, the greatest of all time.
You
Like
rolled
Michael
up
Jordan,
to you rolled up to Hickson's gym thinking you were getting like the Z team of the greats.
But hey, man, I'm not kidding. But it's kind of the same way that I hope people roll with me. I'd rather them roll with me and try and fuck me up before going, oh, maybe he's a delicate actor, I got to take it easy. Or before going, I'm going to fuck that actor up. They just go, clap hands, and you go. I think it was good for me to not know that he was, the dude that did Pride 1. Or before Pride. When he did, it was just called Pride. It was
real good. My first school I ever went to was this place called Gracie Sports in Connecticut when I was living there. And the main guy there is this guy named Marcio Stambowski. He's like a Brazilian tree that immigrated here. He's like 7 feet tall, massive hands. And I thought he was just a really big dude that was nice to me. Like, he seemed like a jovial guy. Oh, it's so good. My name is Marcio Stambowski. He was very nice to everybody. And then when I was there for long enough, I realized, I heard stories. Oh, this guy was one of the big innovators of the triangle, and he just doesn't talk about it. And it's just like, oh crap.
Yeah.
Real quick, I wanted to shift a little bit towards acting, because this is something I think you're uniquely qualified to give your opinion on. Now, you started like late 90s, early aughts, really getting into jiu-jitsu, immediately fell in love. It's only really recently that films in Hollywood have started to take a more realistic approach towards, martial arts and combat. There's a lot more emphasis on, things that work in real life. They're incorporating a lot more MMA, jiu-jitsu, judo into like John Wick being the biggest example. How did it feel as a guy on the inside who was, really deep in jiu-jitsu to still see Hollywood kind of like do combat in the way that Hollywood thought it was supposed to be done instead of the way you knew how it was done?
I mean, at the end of the day, I'm a professional. I'm an actor, but I respect the stunt teams. They come and they coordinate, and you're on the day, and you're being taught choreography by a dude that did a 3-day seminar. You know what I mean? It's like and I'm a big realist guy. It's I don't lead with, hey, I'm a black belt. If people find out, that's cool, but I don't. Nobody knows on a set, But I mean, I like authenticity. That's what I like. I mean, I think Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is amazing. I think in the fantasy world, that's beautiful. I'd love for everybody to do double spinning hook kicks. That's cool as shit. I spent a long time, doing beautiful crescent kicks for points. It's but sooner or later you realize what works and what doesn't work, and your whole game goes down to a handful of things that are repeatable and executable against another trained partner's will. And but there's a big difference between what looks good and what has real world application.
Is that part of what led you to start with the film you're producing right now, to start to bring some reality into what the reality of what fighting is like versus what the fantasy of what fighting is like?
Not really. I mean, I had a story that I wanted to tell, and this the script that I wrote it's honestly my love letter to jiu-jitsu and all the things that I find wonderful and important about my specific life. I don't really care how somebody else would have done the film. And maybe, it's an age-old adage in Hollywood to, you could take the Bible story and a producer can say, I love it, but can they be in Hawaii and in bikinis? You're like, it just doesn't work. So, I was pretty adamant about keeping it real, old school, grinding, violent jiu-jitsu, the kind that couldn't be less cinematic. I mean, there's not a berimbolo in there to save your life. It's the way jiu-jitsu used to look. It's ugly. Like when I watched UFC 1, it looks like, I don't know, it looked like the guy just grabbed him and they both fell to the ground, and then his arms went, I guess they were close to the neck, and the guy tapped. It's not, spinning back fists, and it's
flying triangle.
That was the story. Yeah.
Right.
That was the story that I wanted to tell and what it did for my life. So I wasn't trying to make a point against, Bloodsport or any of the other, heavy leg films.
Okay, now I need to stop you right there. I could get to freaking Coral Belt. I will still love Bloodsport. I can't unlove that movie. I don't care how much. I don't care how much about it I realize is complete gobbledygook. It is. Yeah, no, I'm never.
There's a jiu-jitsu guy. There's a jiu-jitsu. Remember the little monkey guy?
God, yeah.
But me too, brother. Me too. I mean, at my core, I'm a fan. I loved all that shit. I still love Bruce Lee films, man. There's nothing against it, but my heart is in this martial art, and it's the way I originally learned it, where blunt force trauma is taken into consideration in every position. And especially now in 2021, that's becoming more and more rare. So it is my homage to that old school jiu-jitsu that I fell in love with, man.
Well, I've seen some of the clips from the trailer you sent over, and it's amazing. Like as someone that understands and recognizes the beauty of the art of jiu-jitsu, not only did you make it recognizable for those that know what's going on, it seems to me that you did a pretty good job of making something that may be slightly mundane seem interesting and exciting. Were there any tricks that you used to try to make something as boring as like a boring old guard pull or something that, passing a guard and holding a submission position to make it seem more entertaining to like the layman's out there? They're coming to see an entertaining film to be entertained by martial arts.
I mean, in essence, no. But I find that old type of martial art incredibly engaging. And I haven't found anybody yet that didn't understand what was happening and find it rather dynamic, But there is nothing. There's no flying omoplata. There's no berimbolo. There's no single leg X to, inverted Kani Basami bottom entry. There's no, and it's crazy because I know all that stuff, but where my heart is, and this is a period piece. This takes place in the early 90s. So I would be remiss if I put in any, worm guard with double lapel wraps on the ankle and putting it up my butthole and out my mouth. And,
no hold in. He looks like old school jiu-jitsu.
It is.
Now,
and I hope I executed it to the love of all the practitioners out there.
When you were building this film in your mind, was that part of it? The fact that this is a period piece, was that from inception, or was that something you realized as you were writing it, that this needs to be of its time and not incorporate all the new flashy stuff and all the developments that jiu-jitsu has had since the 90s, if that makes any sense? Well,
the truth be told, I wrote this in 2007. So wow. When I wrote it, I was still a brown belt. I didn't get my black belt till 08, May 4th of 08. So I wrote this in 07 as a brown belt, and I wrote it based on the way that I came up. I mean, when I came up, there were dojo challenges all the time. Guys would come in and they're like, "Yeah, I heard a lot of shit about this. I mean, I just want to see if it's real." It's and there were these fights. It was when Sheikh Tanhoun started ADCC. He started Abu Dhabi Combat Club, back in Dubai. It's like, and now it's required learning. So this is these fights really happened, and this is the way jiu-jitsu was back in those wild, wild west days when there was a handful of academies in LA. I remember when I started training, I think there was the Gracie Academy, and it was only in Torrance. There was Rickson's, and I think Jean-Jacques had a place. And that's it. And you had to know somebody that knew somebody to find them. They weren't the yellow pages, man. These Brazilians had no idea how to advertise. Their whole accounting system was, here, give me the money. Yeah. Okay, let's train. They're like, well, how are your books doing? Oh yeah, we're okay.
Yeah, I can pay the rent this month.
Yeah. And so that's the story that I told, because I told it in 2007. The leg revolution hadn't really happened. Nobody knew what a berimbolo was. Everybody just thought it was the way you De La Riva to the back before they renamed it.
Even the idea, the concept of a competitive jiu-jitsu atmosphere was pretty foreign. I spoke to Rob Kahn, who's my head instructor. I brought this up last week when we were talking to my last guest. We were talking about the idea of his first competition he went to go compete in, and somebody passed his guard and kind of held him there and didn't go over the submission and won on points. And he was like, I don't understand this. It was just foreign to me. Like, I don't understand how this person isn't fighting for the submission, because everything up until that point, there wasn't really the understanding of like a structured scoring situation until, 96, 98, somewhere around there when it became official. And then it didn't really catch on very much in the smaller academies until later, much later. So academies back in those days were all about the martial art aspect of jiu-jitsu, hunting for submissions, attacking. And even more than that, when you talk about the practitioners, like there was a very brutal aspect to the sport back then. You had a lot of guys that didn't come to the gym because they wanted to do jiu-jitsu. They came to the gym because they were guys from other martial arts that wanted to come to the gym to show you that jiu-jitsu wasn't shit and their kung fu or their karate was better than what you had to offer.
It happened more often than not, man.
Yeah.
And crazily enough, even me as an actor, and I'm thinking, I got a fucking day job, man.
Right.
I don't need to be the first motherfucker to lose the $100,000 challenge. Like, what the fuck? It was crazy, man. But I'm very, I tell my students now, I remember Henry used to not let me out of the mount unless it was a submission. And I'm not kidding. I don't say this to be macho because it's going to make me sound like a pussy, but I left that academy plenty times with red mist in my eyes, because as a white belt, maybe Henry's a purple, and you're suffocating. You can't get a breath of fresh air. You just want out, but they won't let you out. And Henry's, you're thinking, I'm paying an inordinate amount of money per month for this, and you won't even let me out when I ask. He's like, there's no submission there. I'm not letting. And I'd get up plenty of times going, Flanery, you're right. Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good, man. But really, you're not fucking good. And you want it. I'm not kidding. There were plenty of times where if I had the ability to beat the fuck out of Henry, I would have. Never had the ability. But as a white belt, you're like, how the fuck can you do that to me when I'm asking for you to? Right now, I'm so glad that I went through that. I owe him a gratitude that he wouldn't let me out of the mount when I asked for it, because it pushed me through that hell and out the other side. And more importantly than being able to escape is, like I tell, especially my kids' class, it's being unbreakable on the bottom. Having the ability to never get submitted and be down there indefinitely and keep your training partner off base and off balance so they can't attack, and you're fine. You're fine. And then you can exit under the circumstances of your choosing and at the time of your choosing. But I never would have got there unless the upper belts like that wouldn't have simply punished me in a time when, the Brazilians knew nothing about like the litigious nature of LA. They were incapable of understanding, man, we're going to get lawsuits if we don't let this guy out for it to happen. But none of us would have sued the academy. But right now, if you did that to some of the students that are like doctors, lawyers, attorneys, they'd be like, fuck you, dude. You're going to have a lawsuit by daylight.
Yeah, that's what I always
think back to some of the shit.
That's what I always talk about.
When I think back of it, I'm so grateful that I went through that shit. So grateful. There was hardly a day that I didn't leave there with ghee burn all over my Irish white motherfucking face. And it looked like I got in a huge fucking fight. But back then, you're leaning on faces when you're in the mount. Like, there was no such, like now, IBJJ, you can't touch the face. Like, what the fuck is that? Like, what kind of jiu-jitsu? You're mounted, you can't lean on the fucking jaw? Like, it's just bizarre to me. We would leave there every day. And I'm not trying to make it sound like I came from a tough fucking school, because that was all jiu-jitsu was back then. Every school was like that. But if you were on the bottom, you were getting leaned on, brother.
I had the fortune of entering jiu-jitsu when I was like 19, and it was much more softened significantly, but I was still overwhelmed. Like my first class, I was brought there by one of my best friends, Ed Berberich. He was a brown belt at the time, guy's black belt, and he was the one that convinced me to do this. And I remember from my first class, he could tell I was messed up because they had me roll right away. And I was hyperventilating. I was very disoriented. And he could tell that I was ready to never come back. And so before I got in my car, he pulled me aside and he grabbed my shoulder. And I'll never forget this. He looked at me and said, "You'll learn to do this to somebody else." And the way he laid it out for me, it's just like, you're feeling this right now and you'll get that power. You'll get to do this to other people, not in a malicious way, but you'll understand what's happening to you. It's all confusing. You're in a storm right now. You'll enter the eye of the storm and you'll understand, and you'll be able to live in that eye of the storm.
This tunnel, you're going to end up on the other side with the ability that I possess. And I'll tell you, I don't say it to be macho, because it honestly almost broke me so many times, like a grown man with trying to hold tears back in his eyes. That's the lengths that they push me to. And I feel like a sissy even admitting it, but it happens to everybody. And unfortunately back then, I think the business model was so severe that a lot of people didn't stick it out, because a lot of people did think, fuck this, man. This is just, it's absurd. But I'm so glad. I get a bigger portion of who I am today is due to the jiu-jitsu mat, larger than anything else in my life, outside of family. But what it truly taught me to find comfort in discomfort. And I'm incredibly grateful for this martial art.
Talk about a little bit how that has carried over into your regular life, because I think about that a lot. Like jiu-jitsu, I started back in 2009. So like I was right when we were switching from the old school into a more kinder, gentler jiu-jitsu academy. But we were still like, there was no intro programs. We just threw us on the mat and you got your ass kicked. If you quit, you quit. If you didn't, you didn't. But when I think about my jiu-jitsu progress and going into to eventually becoming a black belt over the last 12 years, 13 years, like I think to myself that I have grown to a point to where I can learn those lessons and now apply them into my everyday life. Tell us a little bit about how you use that. Tell us a little bit about how you use that in like your acting and some of the other things that have furthered your career.
Well, I got to tell you, everybody always talks about, the importance of adversity in life. Well, nothing will push you like a jiu-jitsu mat. I don't give a fuck what analogous situation it is to discomfort. Real discomfort is on the jiu-jitsu mat. I don't care what kind of pressures metaphorically give you pain in real life. Real pain is on a jiu-jitsu mat. And to go back to the sport versus old school thing, I will say this. There's a common thing of like, well, sport jiu-jitsu, it's for pussies. Let me tell you, the Mayo brothers would still fuck up any dude at a Chevron station.
We say that all the time.
If anybody wants to say, oh, sport jiu-jitsu, you'll get any sport jiu-jitsu purple belt against an untrained person. I had to say that because you're a blue belt. You don't count.
Yeah, you don't count. You don't count yet. You're close, but you'll get there.
Okay, no. Hang on. Not only am I just a blue belt with 2 black belts, I'm a blue belt with multiple-time Masters champion and Sean Patrick Flanery. So however bad you think it is, it's even worse.
But sport jiu-jitsu has against an untrained opponent, man. It's irrelevant. It's just there's no down talk on that whatsoever. It's just a very, very different mission statement. And everybody has that mission statement. What are you looking to achieve? Do you want to accrue points? Do you want to win IBJJF tournaments? Because you would be remiss if you trained fighting jiu-jitsu. Let me tell you, when I dedicate 2 of my limbs to protect face and vital organs, I'm robbing my levers to upset your kazushi, your balance, by 2 levers. I have 2 arms, 2 legs. For the IBJJF guy, you're not worried about protecting your face. So you can do things like deep half guard because you're not worried about anybody punching your face. It's a different mission statement. And there's nothing wrong with that. But everybody should, when they start training, be very clear about what they're trying to achieve. And what it does to my real life, outside of the adversity, I'll tell you, anytime you've been through that tunnel and out the other end, man, it changes the way you go to a job interview. I hate to say this, but because it sounds so pompous, but you got to risk being made fun of to tell the truth. And there's something very comforting about being in a room and saying, if shit went sideways, I could choke them all the fuck unconscious. There's something very, very warm in your back pocket saying, and a legacy of something to give to my kids, knowing that they will never have to rely on the charity of the bully to not get their lunch money stolen. It would be a bad day for someone to kick sand in my son's face. It's like knowing, if I knew what I knew now in high school, it would have saved me so many problems. And it doesn't change in the acting world. You get your self-worth from a different area outside of simply waiting for the phone to ring. You know, if you're an actor and you don't have a secondary passion train, then all of your self-worth comes from that phone saying, hey, you got that job. If you do something that occupies so much of your time that you don't have time to wait for the phone to ring, and you're getting your self-worth in something else, some other achievement that you take with you everywhere and every day of your life, I'm not joking when I say this. If somebody came to me right now and they said, hey, you know, back in the day, Rickson's Unlimited was $220 a month. I think that's still expensive. Yeah. $220 way back then.
Yeah, that was back in.
So it's probably the equivalent of $500 today, right? In a month.
Yeah.
If somebody today came to me right now and said the last 21 whatever years, unless you pay me $1,000 a month for all of those months you've been training and teaching, we're going to take it away from you. I'd find the money. I would find the money. I don't pick a number, whatever it is, I would find it. That's how important it is to me. But I will tell you this, there are some films that I've done that if somebody says, hey, every relationship you've made on that film and every door that got opened because of this film, if you don't come up with X amount, there's some other times I'd be like, go ahead and take it. Jiu-jitsu's not one of them. Now, granted, there are plenty of films that I wouldn't. I'd find the money to take it because I made some lifelong friends from and they changed my career. But there's nothing in the jiu-jitsu world that I would exchange. Nothing.
I would love to pause on there real quick, because with the advent of, you know, you were doing this before there was a real way to show the world how you were doing it, you know, like before social media where you could take a after practice like selfie with Rickson and everybody. We've noticed a lot more like very public figures getting into jiu-jitsu, you know, like singers, movie stars, like I think Henry Cavill's like a one-stripe white belt or something. Do you know of any other like big names in your industry that are doing jiu-jitsu kind of behind, like low key behind the scenes?
Well, first of all, I don't think low key behind the scenes is possible. One of the beautiful things about this martial, I think that's bullshit. I don't think you can learn through privates. I think it's a fucking wank. Unless you have a guy that is doing everything in his power to hyperextend your arm with bad intentions, you will not learn how to escape correctly. I don't give a fuck.
I teach a lot of private lessons myself, and I do the same thing. When I have private lessons, it's like, hey, I'm here to hold your hand, but at the end of the day, I'm your Sherpa leading you into the deep end to let you know that you're going to be fine. Because if I'm just teaching private lessons, there's not a world ever where I can recreate what a real life scenario is going to be like. Like I can murder you at any given moment I'd like to. I have to try to play the game. You have to have someone trying to harm you, trying to give you full go, or you're not getting the benefits of jiu-jitsu. That's what makes jiu-jitsu great. Sorry, go ahead, man.
And also, you know, something that people don't talk about a lot is the adrenaline dump and the management of your emotions. When you go with your instructor, you know he's not going to pop your arm. You know he's not going to collapse your carotid artery past when that hand starts fluttering. When you clap hands with some other motherfucker from a different academy, all bets are off. There is a trust there. And you got to do things knowing, man, if he has me somewhere, I need to tap and tap quick. Managing your emotions and controlling that adrenaline dump and pairing it with making split, accurate decisions under duress, that's part of the magic of jiu-jitsu that can be done on a repeatable basis. You can do it every single day at 100% with somebody combating you at 100%. And that's a wonderful thing that positions this martial art different than others. You can't do striking at 100% every day. You'd die. You'd be concussed at the end of a year. You can pull punches. You can go for speed parring or points, and you can back up. But you can't throw a leg kick on somebody's knee with bad intentions every day for a month. You just can't.
I think that goes to show just how long, to really understand those lessons, you have to have been doing this for a long time and have had multiple martial arts under your belt to really understand the difference. And I wanted to talk real quick, just to push it back towards the movie a little bit. You've had the benefit of knowing, some of like Rickson, you've known some of the best guys in the sport. And I feel like did you lean on any of those sources of information when you were making this movie? Like, did you hit up like Rickson, like, hey, I need your like eyes on this? Or I thought I saw that Renzo was involved in some way in the movie. Did you lean on any figures like that, or was this mainly like your vision and you're qualified to see it through to the end?
Yeah, no, not technically for anything like that. Like I said, by the time that we made the film, I wrote it in 2007. We shot it in 2019, so we did it 12 years later. By the time we shot it, 2019, I was already a third-degree black belt. Not to say that I don't need technical advice from Rickson. If the dude would have been there, I'd have been like, what do you think? But so I didn't lean on anybody or ask for any favors like that. But I did put in a phone call. There's people in your life that, you find out who your true friends are when you ask a favor. And I wrote a book in 2016, and I sent it to a lot of people to get blurbs, to get reviews, one-liners. And one of the first people to call me back and say, yeah, I'll read it, was Rickson Gracie. Called me like that. And he wrote a very flattering blurb for the book. Same thing when I did this film. I put in a call and I said, man, I'd love for you to come out here and join us and do a part in this film. And he was on location within a week. When I can't say enough about Renzo. That is one of the most amazing human beings in this entire industry of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. If you can meet that guy for 3 seconds and not have an ear-to-ear smile on your face, check for a pulse, brother. That dude is the essence of this martial art, top to bottom.
That's what I've heard
from its heart, from its passion to its extreme violence. That dude personifies BJJ.
That's what everybody says. That's the general consensus on Renzo. One of the best guys in the sport. Everybody loves him,
bar none.
So I appreciate you from someone that is in the jiu-jitsu community. Like I appreciate this film more now, hearing your points of view on it. The idea of getting back to the root of what jiu-jitsu means, and the fact that you did this as a passion piece of something to give back to the community, because it's obvious. We just spent an hour talking to you, listening to you talk about how much you love jiu-jitsu. Your passion for the art of jiu-jitsu is unmistakable. So when you created this movie, was there a certain degree of, I'm doing this to show the world how amazing jiu-jitsu is, this is something I want to give back to the sport, to show the people that are practicing jiu-jitsu what an amazing thing you're a part of, and how much it's influenced my life?
I'd love to tell you yes, but when I wrote this, still not a lot of people train jiu-jitsu. I wrote it in 2007 thinking, that I've got to wrap this up in a story that stands on its own outside of jiu-jitsu. And at my core, that's where my heart is, at least in the entertainment industry. My heart is not in telling jiu-jitsu stories. My heart is in telling stories. And if I can include one arena to wrap that wonderful story in, it's got to be my favorite. The most punctuated area of my life is the jiu-jitsu mat. So hopefully I executed correctly in merging those two. But if it was simply a jiu-jitsu story, nobody would care. It's got to be a story that people care about, that then I can throw it into the arena of something that I care about on a completely different level.
Was there a certain degree of marketing involved in releasing the film at this point when jiu-jitsu is obviously hitting a renaissance? I mean, we're at the point now where there's a jiu-jitsu school on every corner. You can't throw a rock and not hit through jiu-jitsu school, especially in LA. They're all over the place. In California, they're all over the place. Was there a certain acknowledgement of that fact? Okay, now it's time to release this movie, because not only is it something that I can love and enjoy, it's something that the media and the mass public, or the masses, will be able to appreciate because people know what jiu-jitsu is and they recognize it to a certain degree.
No, because the company that bought the film, once we completed it, a lot of them they bought it on the story. They didn't even know the difference between karate and jiu-jitsu. It's
interesting to hear. I'm just curious about that. It's interesting.
So John, do you chop wood in this movie with your karate chops, or what's the deal here?
so jiu-jitsu. Okay, so karate. Okay, write karate movie down.
I wax on, I wax off.
Right. I can't tell you the number of times I try to explain to people that I do jiu-jitsu, and they just look at me and say, "Okay," no matter how many times I say it's not karate, they just go, "Oh, karate," and you go, "Yeah, whatever." I don't even have the conversation anymore with them. When they say karate, they go, "Yeah, I do karate. Just leave me alone."
Or how about the age old? Oh my God, so and so said you're a black belt. Yeah. Oh my God, my cousin, he's 4. He's a black belt too. Yeah. Same thing. I
don't waste the energy, because you're going to spend 20 minutes explaining it to them, and they're still not going to be able to wrap their head around the idea that their 4-year-old niece or nephew is a black belt.
Same shit. Exactly, same shit. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Well, that's cool. It's good to know that Hollywood is just as clueless as the rest of as my aunt and uncle are. So,
I mean, fun.
Well, not all of them, but you come into contact with people that are like, so is this the first karate movie you've ever done?
That's great.
I still haven't done any karate movies, man.
I mean, I think that just goes to show that the sport definitely still has room to grow, and I feel like we're at the point where like everything being done now is like a brick, like part of the foundation that will lead to the sport being finally like way more mainstream, because it's grown so much. So many, more people right now than have ever before are aware of what jiu-jitsu is, like even vaguely, and I think one of the last things I wanted to just ask you about, as someone who's been doing it since before it hit mainstream, what's it been like seeing more of the mainstream in the pop culture adopt jiu-jitsu and like MMA, and seeing it go from like this weird thing on Spike TV that was 2 days away from getting canceled to, ESPN, Disney bought it, like, is that a big shift for you, or did you always know it was going to be this big?
Well, I don't think I'm an outlier. I think I happened to find it haphazardly, even though I would have eventually found it. But, at Jerry Banks, when I first met Rickson, it was probably earlier by a couple of years than it would have been if I eventually met somebody and they said, "Hey, by the way, there's one 2 blocks away." But because of that, I knew that anybody that's like me that finds access to this and tries it is going to fall in love with it. They're going to fall in love with it. It gives you a real world applicable skill to carry with you daily. It takes care of your aerobic, your anaerobic. If there is anything for longevity, I've never been a dude that can go to the gym and give me 10 more just for the sake of 10 more. But if you hide it within a chess game of jiu-jitsu, I can do it for 2 hours straight. I can put my heart rate at 180 for an hour if it's locked in a game like that. So it was kind of an interesting organic process to see it kind of come into the mainstream and blossom, and more people to find out about it, and for it to be welcomed with open arms, because now it's on every fucking street corner, man. It is, you know what I mean? It is a little bit disconcerting whenever you I get new students that are from out of town or something, and you get these new students that may have been training 2 or 3 years, and all they've done is ever start on their butt. Like they've gotten very good at a game that they don't have the ability to take there, and that I think is one of the downsides of it. You know, I understand there's a lot of injuries that go with starting on your feet, but man, that's like learning how to handle a weapon, but nobody taught you to load it. You know,
if you've never interacted with this guy before, we just had him on, this judo Olympian, also with a PhD, Roddy Ferguson. One of the biggest.
Yeah.
Everyone's met Roddy. Why? Also, go check out that episode. He's one of the biggest proponents of, if you're not starting on your feet, you're doing the game wrong. You know, unless you don't have legs, you should be starting on your feet.
100%. 100%.
And by the way,
and
Roddy,
to me, it's like leg locks. It's like, well, yeah, if you just introduce a leg lock to a brown belt that's only done IBJJF, they're going to get locked in it and not understand when to tap. But if you start leg locks from white belt, everybody's very aware of the danger. Nobody's going to go like, what? I had no idea that I just get the fuck out of here. A shoulder lock, an Americana comes on like that. Now, maybe unwinding an arm lock and rotating the arm, you have plenty of time to wait for hyperextension, but there's plenty of locks that come on incredibly quickly. And if you wait until you're brown or black belt to learn how to defend those, man, I think you're doing yourself a huge disservice. And it's just like takedowns. It's if you start from white belt, learning how to stand in base and execute and walk and step, always there's possibility for injuries happening. But if you only start at brown belt, then holy shit, man, you're going to get a D1 wrestler that comes into the academy and run your ass through the fucking wall.
All right. So I'm going to include a trigger warning for all of our listeners and viewers who are guard pulling butt scooters, just because, you know, Sean Patrick Flanery is not having any of your shit right now.
you just get called out by SP.
Yeah, no, he's going to come to your house and double leg your ass. All right, well, Sean, I know I'm good on questions, Kev. I don't know if
I had this awesome interview, man. Like, you're an awesome dude. Like I said, like, it's undeniable your passion for the art of jiu-jitsu. It's undeniable. Your roots comes directly from the source. I'm really excited. I was really interested to hear your story. I'd like to hear you started training with Rickson Gracie on day one, and the stories around that are absolutely amazing. Your pedigree is on top. I'm very excited to see the movie because I know that it will, if it has any piece of the amount of passion that I know you have for this sport introduced into the movie, it's going to be amazing. So I can't wait for it to come out. And thank you very much for putting it out there. And thank you for being who you are, brother. Such just a really awesome dude, man.
Brother, I appreciate it, man. And if you guys will do me a favor, man, drop me a line after you look at it. I'd love to hear your thoughts as jiu-jitsu guys, man.
Yeah, no doubt.
No, me and my 2-stripe blue belt, I'm really going to have a critical eye. I'm going to look at this thing, and I'm not going to be nice if it's bad, you know.
Any plans for a release date or anything in the works? Any idea when it's going to start to come out, or we've got any plans for viewing for anybody can see it?
It comes out in select theaters a week from today, next Friday, January 22nd. And on that same day, you can stream it on demand, Apple TV. You know, the industry is undergoing a transformation with the whole COVID crap. So it's coming to theaters, and you can watch it in your house on the same day, January 22nd.
I'll be the day it comes out, I'll be watching that thing for sure.
Yeah, and
brother, I appreciate it, man.
And if once COVID lessens up, like, and there's a vaccine out there, and there's like a big Hollywood red carpet premiere, and you want to throw us some tickets to it, fine, we'll take them. I guess
I've already dressed for it.
You know, I'm like, whatever, Sean. Come on, just like, okay, we'll go. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
You joke about it, brother, but top on my list are my friends from the mat. My friends from the mat, that's my peer group, brother.
Oh my God.
Like, I gotta look at my Rolodex for like film friends. I'm like,
where's your academy located at?
Oh yeah.
My academy, oddly enough, I'll show you guys a quick picture. My academy right now is in Houston, Texas, and this is in my backyard.
Whoa! You got the home. You got the home setup, man.
Yeah.
That's on my property. So if you look at the website and it says in a secret location only disclosed to students, you understand why, because
Well, maybe I can hit you up for a role next time I'm in the Houston area. Maybe
if you are ever in Houston, please drop me a line, man. Like I said,
awesome and refreshing to see someone at your stage that's obviously doesn't have to do this shit. You know, you're an actor, you're a movie star, blah 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 blah. But you get on the mats and you get it done. It's a true testament to jiu-jitsu, bro. I can't say enough good things about you, man.
Well, man, I appreciate it, man. But I truly, a large part of my heart is on the jiu-jitsu mat. And I'm not kidding. Most of my dearest friends are guys that I've clapped hands with and have tried to fucking murder me. And I'm sure you guys are the same. So either one of you, if you're ever in Houston, please drop me a line, brother. Y'all have my contact info.
I just really quickly, if you ever do want to launch, commercials for your gym, I'm just going to make this my audition for a voiceover role.
But if you happen to have
in a bunker at the center of the earth, guarded by robots, Sean Patrick Flanery is teaching those how to murder each other in their pajamas.
I also
if you wish to learn this secret art, please sign up. So if you ever want to hire me
in your way, Sean, just because we're boys now and see if
yeah, John, if you want to read my screenplay.
Now that we bring it up, I actually have a screenplay that you might be interested in. Maybe you can find a spot for it.
It's called the Gallagher Files. It showcases me killing Martians on the moon with my
It's just Kevin following me around with his phone, film me all day.
Exactly.
Done.
Oh man. All right. Well, Sean, thank you so much for joining us here today. If there's anything you would like to plug that you missed in that little brief excursion, and you want to get the word out about anything else you have going on, the floor is yours. You can just give you right there.
You can contact me through Facebook if you're ever in Houston. If you guys want to drop by to train, I'm not kidding. It happens all the time. People reach out, simple students, other instructors. I have an open door policy for people who I, vet on the internet. If you're a jiu-jitsu guy, we're kind of cut from the same cloth already. You can follow me on Instagram, SP Flanery. I hope, and please, if all of you, if jiu-jitsu guys out there see the film, I'd love your feedback. Shoot me a Facebook message or an Instagram message. Whatever, despite all the crazy stories you hear about actors, the only person that operates my Facebook is me. The only person that operates my Instagram is me. Please reach out and let me know what you think. I also wrote a book in 2016 called Jane 2 that I wanted, in case a boulder ever fell on my head, I wanted to have everything written down that I could give to my kids, and it's in that book. Same thing. If you happen to give that a read, reach out to me and let me know what you think. But in closing, thank you guys, the jiu-jitsu community, for giving me a large portion of the love that I have extracted out of my life so far. And I don't say that lightly. And I hope you take this film as the true love letter that it is. And from my heart, I hope you guys enjoy it.
All right. Once again, that is Born a Champion, hitting multiple different platforms in about a week. This episode will be going up, and I'm sure about it this time, the day after it's recorded. So all the information will be accurate, and you can go and run, don't walk, to go check it out, because truthfully, this thing looks like it is a labor of love of the highest order. And anyone that's ever thrown on a gi or thrown on a rash guard, you're going to take something away from this thing. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And Sean, we cannot thank you enough for your time, your passion, and your insights. And thank you for helping this community grow. Everything leads into something. Some kid's going to see this, and then maybe he'll be ADCC champion one day. He'll be choking out a very old Gordon Ryan, and he'll have you to thank for that. So
yeah, exactly.
Once again, thank you very much for your time, and we'd love to have you back for Born a Champion 2.
Anytime, guys, anytime. Thank you all for the time as well. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, I think that is a great place to call it on this episode of the Jiu-Jitsu Times podcast. Thank you for listening and watching. I have been your host, Kevin Bradley, joined as always by my co-host, Mr. Kevin Gallagher, and superstar A-list guest, Mr. Sean Patrick Flanery. Again, Born a Champion. Go check it out. Everybody
B-list.
out there,
B-list.
A-list for this show. Okay?
A plus
Okay,
plus
cool.
for us.
You're not on E! News right now. Okay, this is crazy for us. I wore a suit, damn it. For everybody out there, we're coming towards what I hope to be the end of COVID. And if you've been kept off the mats, we're almost there to full revving back up. So get ready to start training again. But as always, if you can't train, reach out to your loved ones, try and support your local gyms. It's very important because we all want a place to go back to once all this is over. And you want to check in on your teammates. It's a rough time for everybody. So this is the end of the episode. I'm rambling because I'm nervous because Sean Patrick Flanery is here. And I'm just going to call it. So thank you, everybody, for your time. And have a good night.